Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Please subscribe and keep watching more details. Alliya and Shawn's wedding was the worst I've ever seen on 90 Day Fiancé, and they're both to blame. The long-awaited wedding of 90 Day Fiancé's Alliya de Batista and Shawn Finch was easily the most painful wedding I've witnessed in the entire franchise, which is no easy feat. While many 90 Day Fiancé weddings have fallen victim to elements beyond the couple's control, including short timelines, tight finances, and cultural differences, Shawn and Alliya had none of the above. Their stunning California wedding was intricately planned and attended by a large group of loved ones, including Shawn's supportive mother and his beloved dog, Maxwell. This made the day's disastrous turn even more awkward and, at times, heartbreaking. Shawn and Alliya endured a painstaking path to marriage that began when they appeared on 90 Day Fiancé, Love in Paradise. The couple has a 36-year age gap, which gives them a complicated dynamic. Shawn had misgivings about Alliya's desire for gender affirmation surgery, and he pushed her to have an open relationship while they were long distance. However, Shawn and Alliya also had many sweet moments, and Alliya's move from Brazil to Los Angeles proved their love could overcome even the most difficult circumstances. Their optimism is what made their catastrophic wedding day even more unsettling. As their wedding day approached, 90 Day Fiancé's Shawn worried Alliya wouldn't be able to stick to their timeline, and it turns out his fears were justified. Alliya was meant to get ready for the 5 p.m. ceremony on the wedding venue property, but even with her friend attempting to keep her on track, Alliya couldn't speed up the process of doing her hair and makeup. She appeared to have no sense of urgency despite Shawn and their guests waiting outside in over 100-degree heat. As the minutes ticked by, Shawn became increasingly furious, and I couldn't blame him. Alliya finally arrived at 6:50, having kept everybody waiting for almost 2 hours. By that time, Shawn had run out of patience. He approached Alliya with a belligerent attitude, and with no acknowledgement of how beautiful she looked, threatened to leave. Although Alliya was completely out of line, I couldn't help feeling sorry for her. She looked so caught off guard. Alliya tried to keep a brave face, but it was obvious she was humiliated and heartbroken. With their futures on the line, Shawn and Alliya proceeded with their marriage ceremony, but Shawn made no attempt to hide his anger. He ordered the officiant to rush through the process, skipping straight to the vows. As they walked up the aisle as husband and wife, a guest asked if the ceremony was a whole 3 sentences, to which somebody who sounded like Shawn coldly replied, "Welcome to citizenship." I can't imagine how uncomfortable the guests felt, and I had second-hand embarrassment for Shawn and Alliya watching them throw away the opportunity to celebrate their love story. Alliya later admitted her disappointment and confusion over what had happened. The moment she dreamed of had been cut short, and she was made to feel like a burden on what should have been the happiest day of her life. Further complicating the unhappy day was an unfortunate incident involving Shawn's mom, Jean. Just prior to the ceremony, Jean fell and hurt her ankle and hip. She insisted she could wait until after the wedding to go to the hospital. Shawn was beside himself with worry, which I'm sure played a large role in his obnoxious behavior. During the 2 hours Alliya kept the guests waiting, Jean sat in the front row in excruciating pain, her leg propped up on a chair in front of her. Alliya's brazen tardiness was seen as a huge lack of respect for Jean, who had been so welcoming and maternal to Alliya. Jean's injury made the profoundly awkward day even more stressful, and it made Alliya's lack of consideration even more devastating. By the time dinner started, tensions were unbearable, and Shawn did little to calm the storm. During an obligatory toast, he thanked his guests for coming, and then added an insult. At this point, the guests were stunned. Shawn had every right to be upset, but the way he treated Alliya ruined the day for everybody else. He admitted during a confessional that Alliya's disregard for him when it truly mattered triggered concerns that she would never truly be there for him. Shawn and Alliya's wedding day wouldn't have been so horrifying if it hadn't been so full of potential. But the 90-day fiancé couple had been through so much, and they'd orchestrated what should have been a perfect celebration of their love, with only themselves to blame for the sad turn of events. I have to wonder if Shawn and Alliya's wedding was a sign that some problems are simply insurmountable. Let me preface this by saying I've watched every season of 90 Day Fiancé, from disastrous karaoke proposals to the infamous Moldovan mansion meltdown, but nothing, and I mean nothing, could have prepared me for the train wreck that was Alliya and Shawn's wedding. It was a glorious, flaming catastrophe wrapped in tulle and desperation. If you blinked, you missed the bride sobbing in the parking lot while the groom tried to Venmo the officiant. Yes, it was that bad. Let's start from the top, or what little top there was, because this wedding bottomed out fast. The lead-up, red flags in red lipstick. From the first episode, Alliya, a glamorous, unapologetically high-maintenance model from Istanbul, made it clear that she expected a fairy tale wedding. "I will not be married in a backyard next to a grill," she said, looking directly into the camera with enough disdain to wilt roses. Shawn, a 39-year-old forklift operator from Dayton, Ohio, clearly didn't get the memo. He had a budget of $3,500, a bag of Costco snacks for catering, and a mother who refused to wear anything but Crocs to the ceremony. Alliya wasn't just mad, she was furious in French. She called her sister back home 5 times a day to scream into the phone, sometimes with subtitles, sometimes without. By week 3, she had thrown her ring into a fish tank twice. So we all knew the wedding wasn't going to be perfect, but none of us could have predicted just how epically bad it would be. The venue, a barn, a beer cooler, and broken dreams. You know when a couple says they're having a rustic wedding, and what they really mean is, "We couldn't afford the Hilton." Yeah, that. Shawn picked a family-owned barn that usually hosts pig auctions and karaoke nights. It's charming. He beamed. There were visible cobwebs on the rafters, and a sign that said, "Nino Spittin." The altar was a plywood pallet spray-painted white. The aisle was lined with folding chairs, none of which matched. One was definitely from a bingo hall. When Alliya saw it, she simply muttered, "I am allergic to hay," and walked back to the car. It took 3 producers and a poorly translated phone call to get her out again. The dress, couture meets disaster. Alliya's dress was stunning, a hand-beaded, imported gown from a Turkish designer with a 10-foot train and Swarovski crystal veil. Unfortunately, it didn't fit. The seamstress Alliya hired over FaceTime never sent the final measurements. So, moments before the ceremony, her dress split down the side, loudly, and she had to be stitched into it with dental floss by Shawn's Aunt Belinda, who kept saying, "It's nothing a little spit can't fix." Alliya's makeup was also a problem. She demanded a professional MUA, but Shawn's cousin Amber stepped in with a side hustle and a bag of expired eyeshadow palettes. The result? A smoky eye so intense it looked like she'd been punched twice. One eyelash dangled like a guilty conscience. The guests, mayhem in every row. You ever been to a wedding where the groom's ex shows up, drunk and 3 hours late, and throws a box of melted chocolates at the couple? Because that happened. Shawn's ex-girlfriend, Carla, had feelings, many of them. She crashed the wedding wearing a floor-length white dress and announced that she was Shawn's real soulmate. Producers intervened, but not before she slapped the cake. Yes, slapped it. Open palm, as if it owed her money. Meanwhile, Alliya's cousin got into a full-blown screaming match with Shawn's brother about whether Turkish coffee was real coffee and ended up flipping the gift table. The only casualty, a blender from Bed Bath & Beyond and one sad envelope with a $20 Target card inside. And yes, someone brought a ferret. No one claimed it. It just wandered around the ceremony like a tiny, judgmental priest. The ceremony, vows, vetoes, and very awkward silence. The officiant was a friend of Shawn's from high school who became ordained online 3 days before the wedding. He showed up wearing a Hawaiian shirt and forgot to bring the marriage license. "We'll just say the vows now and sign it later," he announced, which is never what you want to hear at your own wedding. The vows were supposed to be from the heart. Shawn sounded like a high school book report. "You're pretty and I like you, and I'll try to be less of a jerk." Alliya's vows were entirely in Turkish, and nobody translated them. She might have been reciting an ancient curse. No one can say for sure. The reception, a buffet of regret. The reception was held right there in the barn, under a banner that said CONGRADULATIONS in glitter. The food was catered by Shawn's friend Kevin, who owns a gas station deli. It was mostly potato wedges, chicken fingers, and lukewarm coleslaw.